The Chelsea Supporters Trust has written to the Premier League calling for an investigation into Chelsea co-owner Todd Boehly's involvement with the ticket exchange and resale company Vivid Seats.
Boehly owns just 37% of Chelsea and is also an investor and director at Vivid, and the company offers fans from outside the UK the chance to buy and sell Premier League tickets. Well, the letter from the Supporters Trust highlighted a ticket for Liverpool's final home game of the season being listed for £20,000. Vivid Seats is among a number of companies listed as an unauthorised ticket website on the Premier League's website. The organisation urges fans to exercise extreme caution if using these websites and asks supporters to check with their clubs before purchasing any tickets through them. Vivid Seats, Todd Boehly's representatives, Chelsea and the Premier League have all been contacted for comment.
Right then, where shall we start? Let's go for Todd Boehly, shall we? And the story that we've got in the mail here, Chelsea Civil War, is the headline. Listen, when we're talking about sort of probes and, fit and proper persons tests and all these sort of things, it's normally for fans waiting to see if that person has passed that in order to take over their club, not when they're already in charge and the fans are wanting it. Miguel, can you unpack this story for us?
Well, that's what I mean. It's bringing to a head, well, not quite a head, because I feel like this is going to go on, but it's bringing to yet another peak, an emotional peak, this long-running dissatisfaction, very justified dissatisfaction from Chelsea fans about the running of their club and the, I suppose, the economic outlook of the owners. And it's interesting you mentioned the fit and proper persons test there and all that, because, I mean, one of the major issues with English football, and something that has, I suppose, has been more of a live discussion given the pending independent football regulator, has been over who gets to own clubs. Because it's not just it shouldn't, I mean, one of the long-running arguments has been right up to the issue of state ownership, hasn't been that it shouldn't be about just kind of, whether they don't have a criminal record, which used to be the only parameter. It should also be, you think about the political outlook or the economic political outlook and whether that fits with what a club should be. But obviously, the Premier League in particular has adopted this economic model that has seen an influx of a certain type of very capitalist-driven ownership. And what we are seeing now, I think this season has actually been a massive watershed moment because it does feel like we're seeing unrest across a number of clubs for different but related reasons. I can't really remember a season like it in that sense. And a lot of them are actually, of course, related to either the performance of clubs or linked to that, ticket prices.
Yeah, and on sort of this topic, let's just sort of focus in specifically on Chelsea. And by the way, on this story that Chelsea fans, as the Mail says, has taken the step of demanding the Premier League investigate Todd Boehly over his connection to Vivid Seats, a ticketing website. We have, by the way, asked Chelsea for comment, asked the Premier League for comment, and waited to hear back from them. But, I mean, this points to a wider malaise, doesn't it, Sam, amongst fans, across the country, particularly to do with, what Miguel mentioned right at the end there, ticket prices. And this is, all related to cost of living and, as you say, that sort of, real sort of disconnect between the people who own the clubs and the people who go to the games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right to zero in on this particular story at the start of this, because it's actually quite extraordinary when you think about it just on a narrow scale. The two facts that add a real weight to this story is that Boehly is a director and investor in this company, Vivid Seats. And this is a website, an American website, that resells tickets for considerably more than face value. Now, this website, Vivid Seats, is on the Premier League's list of unauthorized ticketing websites. I mean, that in itself is an extraordinary fact, that you've got a man who owns a Premier League club, and yet he also owns a business that's effectively banned by the Premier League. And they've also got the situation where Chelsea's own website stated last year that any supporters who are found to be selling tickets for more than face value, which is what Vivid Seats does, will be subjected to a club investigation and potential sanctions. So where does that leave Boehly as the part owner of this company? It's a very unusual situation, and clearly, as we've seen, the Chelsea Supporters Trust are not happy with it. I think the one thing I should say, just to make clear, though, is that you can't buy Premier League tickets from the UK on this website, if that makes sense. You have to be a sort of American visitor or someone who's outside the UK. So I think it would be illegal for anyone in England to use it to buy tickets here. But that's the sort of narrow issue on this one. But you're right in saying that the wider ticket issue is absolutely reaching boiling point, I think, now. And we've seen, Miguel mentioned it rightly, that this season's been a very vocal one for fans. But also, I think it goes back to last season too. And you're starting to feel that rising tide of anger and real sort of dissatisfaction among supporters who are seeing these prices go up and up and up. And they're seeing their fans defend it with sort of their clubs defend it with excuses about PSR and saying, oh, they need to get every penny, it all counts. But it's very hard to stomach that when a club is spending sort of £100,000 a week on one player's wages.
Just really quickly, Miguel, one of the little quotes here from the Chelsea Supporters Trust, they quote a ticket for Liverpool's final home fixture of the season listed for almost £20,000. I wonder, should this be allowed to continue? And, you know, the urge to probe or the request to probe Todd Boehly, etc., by the Premier League results in nothing. Do you think we might get essentially ultimately a change in profile of fan who attends these games because of the prices rising?
I mean, it does feel like that is already happening. That discussion has been particularly prevalent around Manchester City this season, where there's been regular supporter complaints about, I suppose, supporters in there that have no affiliation to the club or kind of just seem to be treating the day as tourists. And it does fit into something wide. I mean, as Sam excellently kind of summarised there are very specific details to this Boehly story. But they are, but as distinctive as that is, it's reflective of this trend where, and it kind of speaks to what I was talking about at the top of the show there, I suppose, where ultimately you have a strand of ownership that, and this really applies to most ownerships at Premier League level and really elite football, they don't really see these clubs as community institutions the way they should. I mean, if you stand back really, why do these clubs exist? Well, they exist because a number of people from a local area were willing to watch them over a long period of time and evolve to play football and evolve from that. That obviously became so powerful and so socially important that it attracted all manner of interests. And right now, I suppose the two primary interests are on one side, you have kind of state ownership who view the political capital of these clubs. And on the other side, where there's much more of this type of ownerships who basically look at them in terms of pure financial capital. And nowhere fitting into that really is the idea of what a club is supposed to be. And hence, within that context, in a world where they are constantly trying to expand, they're constantly looking for growth, they're constantly looking to kind of have this massive global imprint. In some ways, the idea of an old-fashioned season ticket is just a nuisance to them, really. Now, look, clubs will deny this. At the start of the season, the newspapers and media sat down with Richard Masters, Chief Executive of the Premier League, and I actually directly put to him that there is a growing fear among fan groups that a lot of ownerships want to gradually erode the numbers of season tickets to create almost kind of these single ticket single game tickets that would cost, say, around £400, comparable, say, to if you go to America and go to an NBA game or an NFL game. And I mean, that sort of fan or supporter or tourist, if you like, isn't just spending so much on a ticket. They're also going to spend much more on the club shop and all the rest of it, whereas a season ticket holder isn't. Masters denied that at the time, but it does feel like, I mean, the evidence is mounting and mounting, and it's just another theme here that kind of raises, or should raise, serious questions about football's modern direction, even if it does long feel as if the horse is bolted. But there is something that we, the media and fans, should be fighting for here.
Often, ticket prices being high is stated as a reason because of like PSR and clubs trying to sort of